Thank you, Paul. Before we go to any of the presentation, I first of all want to welcome everyone tonight on our monthly Stewardship Town Hall. It's a series where many of us come together and others join us, and tonight's topic is really about festivals and reimagining festivals. So we'll get into the actual agenda, but I would like to ask His Eminence to bless us with an opening prayer, any opening comments, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks, everyone. Brother William, Father Jim, James, Father Ted, and every one of you. Let us pray. Loving and gracious Lord, let us give thanks for your greatness, your love, and your forgiveness as we endeavor each and every day to emulate you in our lives. Let all that we do bring your glory, and may your light illumine us so that we may come to know you as the only one who can bring us into the fullness of our faith and to experience the depth of your unconditional love. For yours is the might and the kingdom now and forever and to the ages of ages. Amen. Someone has I'm hearing the echo here. I'm not sure who's that. It needs to mute.
If we can have everyone please either self-mute or Paul, if we mute everyone, then His Eminence can unmute himself. So Paul, why don't you go ahead and mute everyone, and then Your Eminence, if you could unmute yourself once Paul's done that.
Okay. So here we are again, eagerly waiting for the wisdom that the experience of people like Bill Marianis and Steve Pappas and all of you have to offer to each other. We have made a significant progress as to where we were last year, and we give thanks to God for his abiding grace and mercy and love that have guided us during these very difficult times. I know that this evening's presenters, both Steve and Bill, will have very much interesting and applicable insights to share with us. And I'm grateful for the leadership and dedication that have brought to the stewardship ministry in this metropolis. This evening, we continue our Stewardship Town Hall series with the most appropriate and compelling topic that many of us are familiar with: life after festivals, as we have known them. You are all keenly aware of the last year. All of our Greek festivals were canceled due to the pandemic. For many years, the majority of our parishes relied on festival income for operational expenses. This was a hard shift for our communities, but our faithful responded with loving and giving hearts, and a renewed commitment to stewardship was both visible and realized throughout the metropolis, and I think even in the Archdiocese. While we love our Greek festivals and share in our hospitality and food and ethnic traditions with our neighbors, our use for the festivals was a bit skewed. It became viewed as a means of making money instead of something else that could make even bigger and better imprint into our society. This is where tonight's town hall comes in. Please do not misunderstand me. Festivals are not bad. Festivals should not be eliminated, but festivals need to be put in a perspective. Let us use them for outreach and evangelization. Let us use them for proceeds to support charitable causes. Let us use them to show hospitality not just with food, but the same hospitality that Abraham and Sarah extended to the angels that visited them. Tomorrow we celebrate the feast of the apostles Peter and Paul. They were known for very distinct characteristics. Paul was regarded for his humility and self-reproach, and Peter for his burning faith in Jesus Christ and his joyful striving to serve the Lord. Both of them came with a price, the price of immortality, the price of salvation. Let us remember the examples from these two most beloved apostles and apply them to our lives as Orthodox Christians, and how we use their lives and their service as an inspiration as we continue to build up our parishes and the body of Christ through stewardship, good deeds, and ultimately bringing people to salvation in the Lord. I am delighted and honored to be in your presence, and I'm looking forward for our discussion and our presentation. Thank you, Steve and Brother Bill.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Thank you, as always, for joining us and participating here with us. A few quick logistical, I know everyone's on mute. We will certainly welcome everyone coming off of mute and sharing ideas and experiences. I will start to share the presentation. So we'll come out of the gallery view this evening, and I'll go through the agenda that we have tonight. So let me make sure that we can see the presentation. Is everyone able, Paul, can you see the presentation, or Your Eminence, or Paul, can you see the presentation? Steve. Okay, that's thanks, Paul.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. So as His Eminence said, we first planned on having this particular monthly session on life after festivals, but we also recognize it's life after festivals as we've known them. And as His Eminence said, so wisely and nicely, you'll hear a lot of the themes here tonight. It's very important for us to say, again, we value our festivals, and they're an important part of what we do as communities and as parishes. What we really want to talk about tonight, given this is part of the stewardship series, town halls, we want to make sure that, as we know, or as the years have gone on, many of our parishes have relied on the festival proceeds to help cover the costs, and quite frankly, maybe have impacted stewardship or made it easier for people to not worry about giving at the levels that they can. And of course, we're always going to talk about true Christian stewardship and go beyond just the treasure element, but talk tonight about talent and talk about time. So for any festival chairs out there that are worried we're going to try to take festivals away, we're not, but we want to make sure that how they fit in. So let me go to the agenda. So tonight we're going to, in the town hall format, we're going to make this as interactive as possible. Bill and I are going to share some perspectives, but we've also invited a couple of our parishes. We have Annunciation in Sacramento. We have St. Anthony in Reno, sharing some of their experiences, and others that'll contribute to that. And time permitting, and what we always try to do is keep these to 90 minutes to be respectful of everyone's time. But time permitting, we want to get into an open dialogue. And there'll be times during the session, during the town hall today, that we also welcome questions and comments. Again, this series is about all of us sharing for the glory of God and for the benefit of our parishes. How can we learn from each other so that we can go back, strengthen our respective parishes, and thus strengthening the church here in America. So that's our agenda for tonight. We're going to start off, we're going to ask for a little bit of interactivity right from the get-go. We haven't done a poll in a while. 2 simple questions we're going to ask. We're going to give everyone about 30, 45 seconds to answer, but we'll preview them here so you can probably get to your answer pretty quick. So in 2021, is your parish planning to either have no festival, have a modified festival format, like a food to go or other, or return to a pre-COVID festival format? For many parishes, I can already hear some of the answers. We don't know yet. We're trying to determine what it is we want to do. Feel free to go ahead and use B as your alternate there, so you don't take either of the absolutes. But if you do know, we do want to get a sense of just a general pulse. And obviously, this is not a statistically accurate survey. We've got who we have on, but it'll give us a sense of what we're starting to see across our parishes. The second question. Back last year, our pandemic year 2020, how did your parish stewardship fare? Did you see an increase relative to 2019? Did it decrease from 2019? Did it stay roughly the same? So two fairly simple, straightforward questions. Paul, if you can initiate the poll, we'll leave it open for, say, 60 seconds, and then we'll close it. We'll do a little countdown when we get to 15. So Paul, if you're able to initiate the poll, it should come up on the screen. You'll see some radial buttons. All you need to do is just click on the buttons. So has it come up yet? I don't see it on my screen.
No, it has not come.
Okay.
Did we not do it at the beginning when we logged in? Some of us had the poll pop up.
That was the test poll. That was the test drive poll you saw earlier. So for those that joined early.
Okay, let me see if I can, it's funny, we have 36 of 60 voted already. So,
So some can see it. Well, that's great. If people are voting, can others see it? Do you see the poll, Paul, do you see the numbers increasing?
went up to 36, still at 36.
I think it was set up when people first logged in is the reason why you're getting some voting, because it's not on the screen now.
So as soon as someone logged in, they may have seen it.
37.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what, yeah. A group of us did it when we logged in. That's what I was getting at, so.
Okay. So as soon as you logged in, you actually saw the poll, huh? Right, immediately as you came on.
Yes.
There was a spot in the top left corner of my screen where it said poll in progress. If you click on that, you'll get the poll. You'll get the poll questions.
Wonderful. The top left or top right or top left?
For me, it was the top left. It said poll in progress, and I clicked on it and I got the poll questions. Otherwise, I couldn't see them.
For the rest of you, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, there's one of the middle ones that says polls. And if you click on that, it'll pop up. So go to the bottom of your screen, and when it pops up, you should see polls in the middle. And when you just click on that, it'll pop up.
That works, Bill.
Exactly.
There we go, 45 out of 62.
I could make a little joke about, voting in California now, but I'll just let that one sit, okay?
Don't say that.
From a Georgian, I don't know, we want to hear that.
Come on, boys and girls. Everybody's eligible down here.
I'm not.
Am I correct in assuming that if we signed up on the poll as we entered the website, the Zoom site,
It counted.
our poll has been tallied, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, we're going to give it, we're going to give it another maybe 10 seconds, and then we'll continue. Paul, how are we up to numbers?
48 out of 62.
Oh, fantastic. Now the question, Paul, can you share? Let's give it another 5-second countdown here.
Okay, I'm going to end the polling. And I'm going to share the results.
Okay. So Paul, how did we do?
I'm going to share the results right now. Can you see those?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
we can.
yeah, they're visible.
Okay. Very good. So, sorry, I'm getting, as I'm switching between Bluetooths here. So, not having a festival of the population we have, almost nearly 40%, so 38, and a modified. So it's interesting, we only have about 20% of our participants tonight that responded that are looking to have a pre-COVID festival type of format. So, and I imagine those are our September, October, our fall festivals. What is very heartening, I think, for all of us here, stewardship chairs, and for Father Corderas, Stacy, and everyone, is to see that our parishioners, our parishes responded in a time of crisis last year in a positive way, and seeing the increase. So it's thank you all for taking the survey. Again, not scientifically, but it gives us all a sense of how we're doing as a group. Okay, so if you want to just close it, I think you just hit the close button and we can continue on. Great, thank you, Paul. All right, so we'll try to speed this up a little bit so we can leave time again for the dialogue. One second. Hold tight. I'll be right back. There you go. All right, back to my MacBook speakers. Okay, thanks. I'm dealing with Bluetooth devices here. So, Paul, let me know if there's any issues with the audio or if there's any echo, but wanted to talk a little bit about really festivals and how did we in fact get here. And as we prepared for tonight's discussion, we are all very familiar with Greek festivals in our time, in our generation. For many of us, it started as children. We've had festivals since the 50s and 60s. But what was interesting was in the early part of the 20th century, with the immigration to the US, the silogi, or the various societies, would get together for picnics. And these festivals, these picnics, were really for the Greek population itself, the immigrants that came to the US. And it really wasn't until later that then the churches, again, starting probably in the 50s, really in earnest in the 60s, started festivals, church-based festivals that over time became a very critical fundraiser for our parishes. And I think where we find ourselves now, and the topic of tonight's discussion, is really where do we go from here? The fact that, there's many changes going on within our parishes, within the demographics of our parish, as another generation unfolds, and certainly here on the West Coast, where we have fourth and fifth generations, we have many who have joined our faith that may not be ethnically Greek. What should a festival be, and the purpose of the festival as we move forward? There is no doubt that festivals have been incredibly important to the church here in America. You see a quote here. There's not a lot of info or data out there, but there was an article back in 2007 that Steve Frangos had written. And the quote, I think, said it nicely. And you can see that here on the slide, of how important it was for us to even use festivals for not only building our churches and our church communities, but also sharing our culture and our faith with others. So we love our festivals. We love our festivals for many, many reasons. These are only a few. We love them because we get to share our faith. We get to share our Hellenic culture with our neighbors, with those around us. We bring together our communities for a common purpose. And we don't often get the chance to do that. We get to pray together, we get to worship together, but outside of the other, the other ministries, the other activities, we always seem to get a subset of the parish. And the Greek festivals or the festivals have been an opportunity to get a very wide group of individuals from our parishes working together. And certainly gives us the opportunity to enjoy one another's fellowship. And one of the things we also are able to do is make it an easy on-ramp for new parishioners or people just coming to the parish. We get to know individuals as we work side by side with them hours on end. And of course, we raise funds for our parishes and the needs of the parish. Paul, I just want to do a quick sound check, just given I had to switch. And are you able to hear me?
Sound great.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Some of that, given that it had changed the audio. So we love our festivals. We also are parts of our festivals, and I'm sure we have some festival chairs and former festival chairs and festival committee members. Festivals are tough. They've always been tough, and they require an incredible amount of effort and planning. And we need to go out. We need to solicit donations and gifts for the festivals, whether it's in the form of food or supplies or money or sponsorship. And it's very time intensive. And I think what we have all seen over the years is the days seem to get longer. In some cases, some parishes have gone to even more days than they've had before. And without question, and I know many can empathize with this, too few volunteers, too few people. So we're actually having a workforce and labor challenge that we're finding with our festivals. And as we said, from a good part is we get to raise funds, but we've gone to the point where we're starting in many parishes to rely on these funds for the operations of the church itself. I couldn't help it when I think about, I hate to use the word loathing, but if anyone's had to do the Lukumadas at their festival, they know it's probably one of the most difficult jobs at the festival. There's a lot of difficult and challenging jobs at a festival, but Lukumadas is definitely right up there. So yes, we have become, in many cases, become dependent on festivals. Bill, shared with me in the work that he's done across the archdiocese and even outside of our own Greek Orthodox archdiocese. We see that 28% of the parish income is coming from festivals on average. Imagine almost a third of parish income. And most of our parishes aren't operating with surpluses. They may be breaking even. They're coming from festivals and hall rentals or other, the non-Orthodox money and the money that comes from outside our parishioners themselves that should be coming from stewards and stewardship. This has been a topic many of us here have been talking about, if not for years, for decades. And the need to increase stewardship to support our communities, to support our parishes on a day-to-day basis. And then at the very beginning of 2020, we all experienced the one global phenomena of a global pandemic, and it forced the issue that we've been kind of kicking the can down the road a bit, worrying or thinking that we'll just try to get through at least one more year as we've always have, and we'll figure it out sometime in the future. 2020 and the pandemic forced us to stop and rethink. So here we all are today, and we do sit on this precipice, and we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our godchildren. Where do we go from here? What should we be doing? And tonight's town hall is really about us on that journey together, sharing ideas and thoughts and figuring out what will make sense. And we'll try different things, and we'll succeed in some areas and we'll fail in others, but we need to continue to try new things to see what is going to work for our communities. In the poll itself, we talked about, do we just keep the festival as is, the same number of days? Do we kind of keep the same number of booths? Do we try to, continue what may have been going on for years and decades, or do we rethink the festival? Do we try to reimagine what a festival can be? Or do we not do a festival at all, as we were forced to last year, to not be able to have a festival in itself, a multi-day or a weekend festival? So in the spirit of trying to reimagine, a new festival, type of festival, for the future generations, posing just a few questions to get us thinking here tonight, to getting us to challenge ourselves in this, safe environment here this evening, and wondering what are the steps we can take to kind of create that, what would be a festival, and I'm even holding back from saying Greek festival, but the festival for the next 2 or 3 decades. And why are we doing it? So, do we move from just a Greek to a multi-ethnic festival or event? And we may have some parishes that are further down that road than others, and would love to hear from them here this evening. How can we make these festivals, or the funds we get, engines for outreach and evangelism? And as Eminence, talked about, using our festivals for outreach and evangelism. And then, are there other ways, whether it's supporting local charities, ministries of the Archdiocese, ministries of our parishes, ministries of our metropolis? What can we do with additional funds if we have stewardship, covering the basic needs, the general needs of the parish itself? And how do we engage our parishioners? I think it's one of the things that has been so important, so valuable throughout the years, of making sure we can engage it and engage a wide group of our parishioners. And I think what we found is, as it's become almost too taxing, we've scared off individuals. And we need to make the effort welcoming and easy enough to make sure we can get people to participate. I look across and I saw everyone on the earlier gallery view, and for many of the people that I know we're all the people that are extremely committed, that put in the long days, the long nights for our respective parishes. But we know that we need to widen that net and bring in even more individuals, and not make it fit today's generation, today's society, the demands that they have, within their lives. So again, to bring them into the church. So thinking about stewardship, right? We want to talk about festivals in light of stewardship, or stewardship in light of festivals. And one of the things that's important is that we look to increase stewardship, to lessen that reliance on festivals itself. And, for many last year that may have traditionally given their time and talents to festivals, they may or may not have, been asked, in lieu of that time and talent, could they make an additional commitment to the parishes? I know other parishes have done a really good job at that. Others have not done that, but it's almost the shift of, individuals committing less time and less of their talents, unfortunately, but we need, in lieu of it, more of the treasure to support the day-to-day operations of the church and the parish. And, in many cases, we have very generous individuals that their annual commitment to the parish may just be the festival, maybe donations of food, of supplies. How can we turn them into stewards, into, annual supporters of our parishes, that give in a way that will sustain us, whether we have a festival or not. We would hate to either curtail or even eliminate if a parish decides to not do a festival, but lose those individuals that have been so generous in the past. So, we want to view festivals not, simply as a required fundraising, vehicle for our parishes, but it can, in fact, be a catalyst for true Christian stewardship. And, His Eminence and I didn't coordinate, but I think we came together and sort of said, very similar things, which is, how can we use either the festival, the event itself, as well as the proceeds from the event to increase engagement of our parishioners. And we can do that by even supporting and growing our ministries and having the parishioners work and participate in the festival. How can we have greater outreach to our communities, our local communities, and supporting the charities, the work that our Philoptochos does so well, but doing it even in a broader and deeper way from a parish standpoint. And of course, evangelism. We bring so many, we introduce so many to our faith as they come to our churches, maybe for the first time, and they take that church tour and they learn and they discover orthodoxy and the beauty of orthodoxy. So again, things for us that we do not want to, as we tinker and, play with what a festival format can be, to really stay true and hold these things that have been so valuable to our festivals in the past. I would like to now we'll open it up and have a couple wonderful parish stories shared. We'll also open it up at that point for other comments, experiences, and before we turn it to Bill to also bring us home and tie things together for us as he does so well. But Stephanie, I saw you were out there earlier. If you're able to come off of mute and tell us a little bit. I know you also have Michael and George Dariotis, and we've got a great contingent from Annunciation in Sacramento here with us tonight. And if you can, share what you've done as you've gone through 2020 and done just I think a remarkable job of continuing this program that's been so important to Annunciation. So Stephanie? Paul, can you hear Stephanie?
I can't.
Okay. Good. I mean, not good, but I had that skip of a heartbeat that you have when you're like, have I been talking for like 10 minutes? I disconnected somehow.
No, we heard you loud and clear, Steve. No problem there.
Great, thanks. So, let's see, Stephanie, I saw you out there. Is Stephanie out there? Paul, since I'm doing the screen sharing. And
yeah, I'm looking at the participants and
Hi there.
Hey.
Sorry.
Hey.
There we go. Hey,
Sorry,
Stephanie.
I have a visitor with me. Let's see. The kids were freaking out inside, so I had stepped away for a second.
No problem.
Hi, everybody. My name's Stephanie Hionis. I'm festival co-chair from Annunciation Sacramento. I'm one of two co-chairs, I should say, for the festival. For what was going to be 2020 and moving forwards. So last year, Steve, I'm sorry, I completely missed any intro you may have given me.
So Stephanie, I'll give you a quick one so you can get. So I had mentioned the fact that you've got some really strong backup here with George and Michael Dariotis, but I think both were on earlier, and just I think the phenomenal job that Annunciation in Sacramento has done with their Greek to go or food to go program. You've tried different things. Certain ones have worked great. There's been learning. So if you're able to share with the group here, and I know others have done similar programs. So again, in the spirit of sharing and understanding and kind of learning from one another, that was the general intro, Stephanie. So
Okay, thank you. So what we had, the festival committee, prior to me becoming co-chair, I was just a member of the exec board at this point. We had voted to cancel our October 2020 festival. And sorry, I was trying to think timeline. We had in May, we had voted to cancel our October 2020 festival and make it a 2021 two-day event in February. Our parish council, under Michael Dariotis' leadership, decided to start a food to go program in, hang on, honey, in November 2020 with Pastizo. And then the festival committee stepped up and proceeded to execute 5 more. So we did, the first one was Pastizo.
I found some, Mom.
Yes, honey. And then we did.
Can I go get it?
Go inside. Go to Baba. Go to Baba.
No one does it in your lap.
Sorry, everybody.
And the we
Pastizo stifado, gyro, pastizo stifado, gyro, kotapsiti, moussaka, and souvlaki. And I mean, by no means did these 6 events replace the income that we made from our festival, but it was more than 0. And so we took that as a win. We had really good community support. Our festival is typically 3 days in October. We get about 10 to 13,000 people depending on year. And we were happy that we made more than 0. One of the questions that Stephen asked me to talk about was how we flexed our community to do the food to goes, which we have here, a Greek to goes. And primarily it was our exec board of 9 members met twice a month to basically strategize and plan the coming month's event. And we had, on the actual event, we'd have about, I think at our height, 25 people between kitchen, order packaging, and runners from our, because we had I need you to go inside with Baba. We had curbside pickup. And for the most part, we, it was our festival board, and then some of our chair people would help out, and we would tap certain parishioners for certain things periodically. But for the most part, outside of the usual festival grader committee, maybe 5 to 7 people max. 5 to 10 people max would show up that were not part of the festival, but a family member was part of the festival committee or a chairman or on the exec board. For 21, we are one of those parishes looking to do a modified festival. Instead of a 3-day, we're looking to do more of a 2-day. I think the hours will remain roughly the same, but at this point, At this point, we're not gonna have any indoor items. It'll be all outside. So we usually have a la carte and seating inside with pastries, and marketplace, our bookstore, bar. So the majority of these items will either be removed or relocated outside. Like we're not gonna have an a la carte line at all. Our pastries will be scaled down from what we normally do. Hey, I need you to be quiet. Our pastries will be scaled down from what we normally do. We haven't entirely figured out where we'll be selling those from yet, but our talks are in our foyer. We'll have food in our foyer with doors that go to the outside as food lines.
Stephanie, what you said, maybe cutting it down to 2 days. What day are you eliminating or thinking of eliminating? I know the plans aren't firmed up yet.
At this point, we're talking Friday, Saturday only instead of Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. And the reason I ask is I'm starting to hear that from other parishes too. And I think that, in the spirit of all of us rethinking or challenging it, what a lovely idea to maybe free up Sunday, make it easier for people to go to church, maybe coming together as a community, to share our own fellowship with everything set up. But that's interesting. Yeah. So you're thinking maybe Friday, Saturday.
Mm-hmm. And the past 5 years, we've been back on our church grounds. So people would go to church and then... These are quiet voice. People would go to church and then just basically walk into the festival as they exited church. Because the festival would start 11:30, 12 as church got out.
Yeah. Good. Definitely, I want to... Yeah. Any other? I know. I wanted to make sure we have a chance to get to St. Anthony and Reno. Also,
the other thing that I was gonna say is in 22, we're at this point planning on doing our regular full festival. So this is an interim year, if you will.
And then going back to the full pre-pandemic type of format.
That's our thought at this point. Who knows? We might we might find the 2 days is better for everybody, because as you touched on that, I am younger than our festival, and a lot of the people who make our pastries and run our kitchen and run the various booths are older than our festival, and we've been doing it. This would have been number 57 consecutive. So, like you said, we need to start reimagining what it's going to look like.
Yes.
Thank you all for your time today.
Stephanie, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I believe it's your daughter that was there. It was such a wonderful reminder of why we do what we do, why we've done it. So that then she can go grapple with her in her life, with festivals and what to do with festivals. So it was a nice reminder.
Yep. I'll be around afterwards if there's questions.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
I'd like to, if I can, real quick, because I'm going to switch slides. I'm going to have to switch slide decks here. So we can have Demi talk about what's happening up at St. Anthony and Reno. But while I'm doing that, Connie, if you're out there, Tucson, Arizona, I know you've done a bit of a food to go. Can you just take a couple minutes talking about the Tucson experience?
Sure, thank you. It was a good experience. We weren't quite sure what to expect, but for a few reasons, it was a good experience. We had the support of parishioners, and as you mentioned in a couple of slides, it was really nice to come together as a parish family when we were not able to do so for so long. So we had donations that helped offset the expenses, especially by people who were still afraid because of COVID. Our festival was in September, the end of September. We kept the same weekend that we normally have our festival, but ours was only to go and only online orders. So a lot of people who weren't able to help physically helped financially, and that was very helpful, of course. It was also something for everybody to be excited about. So it even just the idea as we started to mention it kind of grew and was very nice. We did have the support of the Tucson community. The comments were very interesting. Thank you for doing something normal. We hope that you can come back next year with a full festival because there weren't any events going on. And there were some people who actually liked the order online and pick up to go because they didn't have to wait in long lines. So they hoped that we would keep that little piece for the next festival that we were going to have. The nice things, as you mentioned, is we needed fewer volunteers. There were fewer expenses and there was less liability. So that was very helpful. And we thought that if we were successful enough that if we had 3 or 4 of those, it would make up almost entirely what we would normally make in a big festival. And we did take 10% of our profit, our net proceeds, and gave that to charity. We gave that away. We also did a holiday sale with frozen spanakopita and pasticho, and people could take home and bake, but again, online. So now in September, we're going to do a hybrid. So we're keeping the online format and they come and they pick up, but there's also going to be a section on the church grounds where they'll be able to get saranaki, they can get pastries. There's a deli there and a couple of other things just to sort of make it a little more of a festival. We have a little more leeway because we're in Arizona, so our rules weren't quite as strict. And I think that pretty much covers everything. We did have, I will mention this because we mentioned runners and the number of parishioners we needed or volunteers to help. There's an organization in town, which is the Boys Club Charities. And many of those boys came and helped us as runners, and they were invaluable. We really couldn't have done it, especially that first day, without them. And it was 2 days.
That is great. I know that labor is becoming a larger and larger line item for most festivals, and it's just a great idea of engaging, some of the local community. Connie, thank you. Thanks for sharing the Tucson experience. Demi, maybe if you can take 5-10 minutes here, and then we're going to turn it back to Bill, and then we'll open it up for general discussion. But Demi, want to tell us a little bit about the income generation plan that was started there at St. Anthony in Reno.
Great, thank you. And thanks for those who presented so far, because we're still living through this and morphing and looking for new ideas for us. So what we put together in St. Anthony, Reno, back last July, August, feeling very reactive, right? Our September is normal. Our festival is normally in September. I think we were still holding out hope, even till, that time of the year that we might be able to have something. So we felt in a very reactive state. We've got to pull something together. Food to go for us was going to be a challenge. We had dabbled in it in our festivals, but orders by phone, and we knew we couldn't manage that in a food to go only format. There would be no way. We'd have to find something online for ordering, and just didn't feel like we had the time to focus that. So we looked more holistically at, what income do we normally get for our festival? How can we fill that gap, right, throughout the year, and put together a comprehensive plan instead of just focusing on how do we replace the festival, how do we look more holistically? So we were reactive, but very cognizant of the opportunity to change some of the thinking that we're all talking about, right? How do we focus more on stewardship? How do we support more from within? So if you switch to the next slide, you can just see a quick snapshot of what we came up with. We did create what I would say is a campaign, if you will. So it's our plan, but our campaign, we gave it a name. It's Faith and Light for All Generations, because again, we were thinking not just solving the problem we have in front of us today, but how does this help us solve for generations to come? But we really just refer to it now as Faith and Light, Faith and Light, Faith and Light. So it's something that's really kind of taken hold within the community. And we focused on 3 areas, closing that income gap from not having the festival and from other sources as well, right? Less people in church. So we were seeing a drop in income in other ways. So we were focused on donations, which would just be people giving from their heart. We know we need to support, we're going to give a little bit more. We've focused on fundraising, and we focused on stewardship. And then we really put a lot of effort in communicating across all of that. And if you switch slides, you can see that we did set a goal because we felt like if we have a number, it's easier to measure, it's easier to help with communication. So our goal was to raise $125,000, and that funding was specifically from donations and fundraising. So that didn't include any stewardship bump we might get. So we just focused on the goal aspect from it was, again, donations and fundraising, and that made up for the loss of income of our festival, which made up about 30% of our annual income. And then what we were seeing in those other losses from, less donations in the tray and at fellowship, things like that. But today I was going to share with you just a little bit about stewardship and why we included stewardship, even though it didn't count towards that goal. We felt it was important that we maintain our stewardship levels in order for that to be our goal. If our stewardship dropped, then we would have a bigger gap to close. And again, we wanted to really take the opportunity to look at what we can do to create some more foundational work towards becoming self-supported. So that's why we did put stewardship within our overall plan. And then, so today I'm going to talk a little bit more about stewardship than about, other ideas we have for festival, but just to share with you what we did in 2020, we just focused on maintaining, we improved some organization, we added an online giving capability, which we didn't have before, and we did more outreach with parishioners. So more, we didn't call and ask for more money, but just more checking in, seeing how people were doing, that type of a thing. And we did, you'll see here, if you click one more time, that we did, when we started this and felt reactive, our stewardship numbers were actually down. In 2019, we had 120 stewards and that had committed for the year. In the June timeframe, we were only at 90 and less than we had committed the year before. And so as we rolled out the plan and communicated more, you can see that we did increase over time, and we actually were one of those parishes on the survey that saw an increase in stewardship at the end of the year. And then, we just wanted to maintain there, but what we did do at the end of 2020 was you can go ahead and flip, we put a much greater focus on our 2021 approach. So through communicating about the plan and stewardship being part of the plan, we asked for people to get involved, and our stewardship team actually is where we saw the most interest. We had the most people say, hey, I would like to help with stewardship, which I don't think was something we expected, but was fantastic because it allowed us to create a plan. Many of the things you're seeing here, some of you will be familiar because our team really engaged in taking the opportunities that the metropolis offered to have these different town halls, learn from others, reached out to other parishes. You can see we had a one-person stewardship committee. It's now 3, and we did implement an outreach or an ambassador approach, which has been going well from us. A lot of lessons from it, but something we think we'll keep. And again, just developing that plan and having an approach is something at our church we hadn't had before. We just kind of said, hey, it's time to do stewardship. Don't forget to fill out your card, and kind of left it at that. So we have more consistent communication, more, I think, insight into how stewardship plays a role into our overall financing and things like that. And then you can see we also created a stewardship month. So in November, when we kicked off, we kind of did our kickoff communication. We mailed letters. This is where we really did our targeted outreach and called. And again, we didn't ask for money. We check in on people. Did you get your card? It is important for us as we're planning for the future to understand that. We worked with Father, and we had coordinated sermons, and we did dedicate one Sunday at the end of the month as Stewardship Sunday, and everything that had been offered at that point. And Father offered a blessing to just, in the spirit of multiplying and being thankful what's being offered and multiplying that going forward. And then if you click, you'll see the graph and see that we actually have been overwhelmed with the results from our community. So we started off the year in January, almost at the same pledged amount that we finished the year last year. So that's something that we haven't seen here before. Usually it comes in, but it comes in over time. But through our communication, through, I think, just being more organized, we were able to understand up front that we were where we were at in terms of going forward, and we've continued to grow in that pledge. And one thing I would add too is this 140,000 that we had pledged at the beginning of the year. Our budget for the year, we stretched ourselves to 175. So we went from about 45% of our budget in stewardship to about 60. So we're not fully supportive, but we're inching that way. And this is over 120 stewards. So normally, I'm sorry, this was about 75 stewards in January. So we were seeing, you know, the same amount, almost the same amount of pledging, but with less people pledging that amount. So again, we've continued to grow. We're at about 120 stewards right now. We normally in the year at about 130. So we do feel it's realistic that we'll get that $175,000 goal and maybe more. And you know, we know it's a pandemic year. We know it's a unique year. We know people are being generous in that spirit, but we're also, you know, going to continue down this path and be hopeful that people are recognizing this shift and that commitment to support from within. And I saw someone ask about ambassadors. Did that question get answered on the chat? Or you want me to hold that for later and I can just keep going through? I would say, you know, ambassadors, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, as I say, Demi, finish the presentation. We'll open it up for a couple questions,
Okay.
You know, specific to this. And
I just have one more slide to share here with you. This was just the other things that we feel we're supporting and kind of how, you know, putting stewardship within Faith and Light allowed us to take a more comprehensive approach. So we do monthly updates about Faith and Light. So we do monthly updates about stewardship as well, which is not something we had done before, so people can see the progress. We have coordinated messaging. Everyone knows what Faith and Light is. It's not just coordinated coming out about Faith and Light, but it's in our newsletter, it's in our sermons, it's in our bulletins, all of these different places. And just really focusing not about, oh my gosh, how are we going to replace the festival? That actually hasn't really been a lot of the conversations. It's just about faith and light and love and supporting. It's our obligation, right, to support our church. So that's been the messaging. And then our parish council has been fantastic. And I say that as a member of the parish council, so maybe that's a little biased, but you know, active engagement in all of this. So many of our parish council members, even if they're not on the stewardship team, are attending these different calls. They're modeling positive behavior. They did commit to zeroing out our festival budget for the year. So we didn't set a target for, you know, festival if we were able to have one. We just took that pressure off and put stewardship planning as a top priority. And then the last thing I would just show you, just with regards to Faith and Light a little bit, we've learned so much from it. I think the biggest lesson is, you know, the willingness of our community and the ability. I think it's teaching us that we can support from within. We're finding new ways to generate income. And really just that power of faith and love. And people say, you know, what have you been doing? Mostly we've just been communicating, telling people this is our gap, this is what we need to do. And what I find most interesting is when we look at our Faith and Light, this is as of the end of May, but the majority of our income that we've generated has been from donation, not from fundraiser. So we had one very small food to go event, and we had another in honor of event, I would call it. This ratio is going to change because we did just have a golf tournament. So I think we'll probably end this campaign with about 15% of that generated from fundraising and the rest from donation. So I think that just really does tell us that we have the capability. We just need to keep planning, stay organized, and keep the communication going. But all of these ideas about festival, I love, because I will tell you that we are considering festival probably food to go. And the way we're envisioning it right now is, you know, whatever we can make this year is bonus money that then we know what we have. We're not, and we consider that in our budget for next year. So hey, can we increase, look at all this money we didn't expect, you know, from a food to go event, for example, or a festival. Let's increase our ministry budget. Let's increase what we give back to the community, things of this nature. And so I don't think we necessarily thought this all the way through when we zeroed out the budget, but what it's turning into is, wow, we've really changed the tide, right? So now we're looking at that festival income as extra, right? And we're going to look at other ways to close that gap on the operating budget, number one being stewardship. So I hope that's helpful. I'm happy to answer questions when the time comes. Yeah.
Wow, Demi, that is incredibly inspirational.
Thank you.
Just the work. This is, I think that's, I know for me personally, or for many here, that's the kind of the best part about hearing from our various parishes. And you've taken so many things. I haven't been able to look at the gallery, but I'm sure Mr. Marianis is smiling ear to ear.
He's been an inspiration for many, and I'm the voice, right? There's so many people behind this, so many those folks you talked about earlier who are up late at night and really committed. And this last slide, this is just something that we did. We finish every Faith and Light slide with this. You know, we really felt it important to stay connected to our faith. And again, we love our festival too, but kind of take that out of it. And so we selected Saint Cosmas as an inspiration for us, and really the patron saint of our effort. We're inspired, you know, he went around and built churches in a time that was hard and bringing people closer to God, and that's what we're about. So we're working on our one church right now, but certainly inspired by his work. And so we finish every Faith and Light presentation with just a prayer and again, reminded of the inspiration of all of our saints, but particular Saint Cosmas.
Fantastic, Demi. We'll ask if we could just hold questions just for a few minutes, and then we'll come back. And Demi, I know you'll be able to stay on, Stephanie,
Yep.
And we want to leave some time again for that dialogue. Wanted to bring it to Brother Bill to he's heard a lot. You know, normally we get to hear from him in these sessions. Today, I think he's heard from us. And Bill, if you can kind of bring us home, you know, hear a little bit on the things you've heard, some of the thoughts you've got, and then we'll open it up to the group here.
All right, we got a few slides to run with that too. I know Steve's going to pull that up. So first of all, I hope everybody listened carefully to all the presentations. Demi, I really want to commend you on the parish. If you really think about what they were focused on, they were thoughtful and organized in advance, but they came up with a good plan. Number two, they were empirical in their foundation. They actually looked at the real numbers and tried to figure out how they can achieve it. Number three, and this is key, they over communicated, and that is the one thing we underdo in almost everything we do. And you can't over communicate, so that's really kind of an oxymoron, but they communicated effectively and consistently and constantly. And those are the three things that, you know, we can't encourage enough. And then here's the other thing that I just wanted to reinforce is they just experimented. You know, they said, look, here are the best practices. We know what they're out there, but let's see how they might work in our community. And I think that's really the one thing that we hope will come away from this for everybody, is that you will feel free to experiment a little bit more and do different things in different ways. One data point, you know, I always got to give you some data points in this regard. We actually now have the charitable giving data for 2020. Now, this is across all charities, not just churches. It might surprise you to find out that overall in the United States, charitable giving in the pandemic year of 2020 went up 5.1%. And even if you adjust for inflation, it's almost 4%, which is really amazing when you look at that. So real quickly to kind of bring everything together and then give some time at the end. How do we get here? Now, Steve properly pointed out that, you know, like in the early days, the Topikasum at the end, the various groups would have their little cultural things. But here's what the real truth is, folks, if we're really honest with ourselves. Most festivals were invented in Orthodoxy in America in the 70s and 80s. And the reason why they were invented was not because all of a sudden we woke up one day and said, hey, we ought to share our culture with everybody. It arose because economically we were spending more than we were taking in. I can imagine what those meetings look like. I actually participated in some of them. People sat around the room and said, hey, what are we good at? Well, we're good food people. Okay, well, everybody likes our food. Let's make food. And then it grew from there. So it really began as a kind of a stopgap from a financial perspective. And then we threw in all the wonderful, rich traditions and the culture and the dancing and the music and the food, and all that wonderful thing. It's interesting now we're starting to cycle back. All right, so if we go to the next slide, I think that the thing that I kind of wanted to really kind of touch on here is kind of as we start to reorient, whoever's in control of these, if you can click to the next slide. I think what I really wanted you to try and focus on is kind of what's the primary purpose of what we're trying to accomplish now that we're doing this. And you're starting to hear people talk less and less about the financial impact of this and more about the outreach and evangelism impact of all of this. And that's really the key. Steve, can you click the slides, or is somebody else in control of the slide deck? Because I am not. And
I am control. Which slide are you seeing, Bill?
I've still got the how do we get here slide.
Okay,
So if
so
you
I
can go to
think
the next one.
no, I actually went a couple ahead, Bill. So maybe you just got a
Okay.
delay.
Eh,
I'm
could be.
currently on what I'm showing. What everyone sees is what should we do with the money we make? Do you want that one, or do you want the previous
Okay,
one
let's
on
go back real
outreach?
quickly to the
Outreach.
primary purpose, the
Yep.
primary purpose one.
We're
Okay.
on. It's
So I'm
up.
just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it on my screen, so that's fine. And if you look at the scripture passages there, they're really to remind us that we've somehow lost a little bit of the focus over the years, and we're now starting to gain it back again. This is one of the most extraordinary opportunities we have to bring people closer to our churches and understand not just the traditions, that's great, not just the food, that's great, not just the dance and music, that's all great, but really what does it mean to be an Orthodox Christian? And so if you don't take advantage of that opportunity and make the primary focus, or at least a primary focus of your festival, being one in which you can actually bring people closer into understanding the faith and presenting them to the faith, then you're missing an opportunity. If you listen to Father Barnabas when he talked at your clergy ladies, he's one of the priests at my parish up here, and you know, everybody in the entire festival is trained to ask every person that comes in, did you go to the church for the talk? Did you go to the church for the talk? Did you go to the church for the talk? And as a result, everybody goes into the church for the talk. And it's 10 or 15 minutes. It's high energy, Father Barnabas type stuff. And let me give you the names of everybody who attended the Fourth Ecumenical Council, right? It's just really impactful kind of stuff, high level stuff. And then it's an invitation to come back where we can share a little bit more. So that's what I wanted to kind of plant the seed as you start to reimagine. Don't lose sight of the fact that this is one of the greatest outreach and evangelism opportunities you can have. All right, so the next slide is kind of what do we do with the money? And this is actually goes with that. You know, historically, we said, been using them for operating purposes, or some cases building churches or expanding churches. But the more we will invest, that's why a bunch of us did thumbs up when you said 10% went to the community. I think that's great, but why stop at 10%? I mean, think about it this way. If people knew that coming to your festival was a conduit to making amazing things happen in your communities, how much more incented would they be to come to the festival and to bring their guests to the festival? And how much more would we be fulfilling the calling which we have been given by our Lord in Luke 10:37 at the end of the parable of the Good Samaritan, when he challenged us to go and do likewise and serve others. And so in this context, I really want to kind of help you understand that not only is the outreach and evangelism component critically important, but what we do with our money should be very important. The idea that Demi said about zeroing out your festival and finding a way to build the stewardship model is a perfect implementation of doing that. And then start to imagine the change you can have in the community. I know of some churches that have really gone to doing this in a big way, and the entire community comes and supports them because they know that they are such a vibrant source of resources within the community. And it also answers that troubling question we've always asked over and over again, that if our church ceased to exist, would anybody in the community notice? And the answer is yes, but more than just for the festival. They notice because of what you did. All right, so the next slide is really getting us to focus on the pivot. You know, the old political line of you never waste a crisis. And as bad as COVID was, and no question about it, certainly it was a horrible thing to have happen. The reality of it is it gives us an opportunity to reimagine and refocus. But here's the thing I want you to focus on. And if you're really not experiencing this, then trust me, you really haven't asked the question. Go ask the young people in your community. By young people in the community, I mean people anywhere under the age of 30, maybe even under the age of 35. And what you'll quickly find out is they're very good at math. And they've been a lot more successful than some of us were and some of our immigrant parents were, right? And what they figured out is, well, listen, if we all just contributed an extra $1,000, we'd make up the entire amount of the festival, and we wouldn't have to work for 6 months to prepare for it, and 4 months, 4 days of crazy things. So I just want you to know that this is not an accident that this is happening, folks. This is a wake-up call. This is the Jack Welch quote of change before you have to, and there is a season. So the question is, have we reached the end, or are we seeing the end of the festival season in the way we know it? The answer to that has to be yes, because all the data is pointing us in that direction. Now, that doesn't mean that festivals are over, that we never have another festival. But what it does mean is the entire way, the entire model, the entire framework, the methodology has to fundamentally change. When we at the Cathedral in Atlanta implemented iPad ordering for everything in every one of the areas you ordered on the iPad, oh my gosh, you would have thought that we had just thrown out the Holy Spirit from the church, right? Everybody was fussing and moaning and groaning. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, when we had real-time inventory control and knowing what we were doing, everybody thought it was really great. And then when we started doing call-in ordering via the iPad, what a wonderful implementation. Now, honestly, we had the benefit of having the people that implemented that same system in Chick-fil-A come and teach us how to do it at the church. But that was just an opportunity for innovation. Okay, last slide. And this is really kind of the point that we really want to focus on is, what does the festival of the future look like? I mean, I love the comment earlier that I'm younger than the festival's life and some of you are older than the festival's life. I'm just telling you folks, it is not going to be the way it was when I would take off like days and days of time at work to make 30,000 gyro sandwiches over the course of 4 days at the Atlanta Greek Festival, okay? That's just not what the reality of it is. So with this framework and with the understanding that says there's still a need to share our culture, there's still a need to share our traditions, there's an even bigger need to share our faith. And we have a catalyst in this amazing, amazing experience we have of our food and the philotimo and the joy that we spread. What are some of the creative ideas that you all can come up with to re-envision a way that would be an attractive, engaging, fulfilling activity for our churches to start engaging as we pivot away from festivals as lifelines to just being that gravy that comes in and that community service that we offer. So I'm going to stop talking and open it up to every one of you to share new and creative ideas. Let's use this as a think tank opportunity here to come up with some crazy ideas and throw it on the thing, and nobody rain on anybody else's parade. Let's use this moment, because folks, this is going to be that point of inflection when you look back in 5 years or 10 years from now and see that the festival is nowhere what it was when you grew up. This is the moment you're going to think about it. So what does the future of the festival look like? What are some of your ideas?
So feel free to come off of mute. Share thoughts, suggestions. Again, this is our sort of safe place. This is an opportunity for us we don't have to worry about particular parish issues, politics, or anything. This is for us for the benefit, again, of our parishes and for the glory of God.
You can end the share and we can just look at all each other Brady Bunch style.
Yep, let's do that.
So this is Margaret from Anchorage, Alaska. And what we decided was we're always going to have an online order option. We're always going to have a drive-through going into the future because that's what some people want. And I think that we really, I was so impressed with Demi and what they've done. We've done quite a bit in our stewardship program based on what the Metropolis allowed us to visit with Bill for 6 weeks in our implementation of that. And I think that we are going to be more and more and more into the community in terms of donating. We have 4 events, good and faithful events now, where we gave 10% of our festival pre-pandemic. Now we're going to have 4 events post-pandemic that we did, and 2 of them involve our youth. So we want to build up our youth. We want to build up we've always wanted to build up our stewardship, but it's getting more and more. So really inspired by Bill and then by others implementing what Bill has said and how it's worked. So, and we did 2 little outreach things where we literally just wrote cards and said, have a very Merry Christmas, even, during and people were like, wow, that was awesome that we got these cards. They want to be engaged. They need to be contacted. And just really inspired by Bill and everybody that's inspired by him. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Margaret. Others? I know Neil, maybe not in the light of the festival brainstorming, but sort of, some thoughts of how do we have even our own parishes think about, the outside monies versus stewardship.
Say, this is Danilo in Reno by way of Kansas City. Good evening, everybody. I work for DME, and I'm working on an airport project here in Kansas City. One of the things two things I wanted to emphasize for Reno, besides the superb leadership from President DME, is that I think we were successful because we had a plan. We had something in writing, and in my business, unless it's in writing, if it's just words, it just evaporates as soon as the words pass through the lips. So putting something down in writing, we went through 8 drafts before we got to the final. So that was very good. And I listened to all of Brother Bill's 300 plus slides and presentations. And I talked to him privately about in the ambassador program, and I was trying to find some benchmarks out there. And another extraordinary source is Father Eris Matrakis at Holy Trinity in San Francisco. So I had 2 extremes here, Brother Bill and Father Eris, and 2 different approaches. And we just kind of created a hybrid between them. But frankly, the bottom line is because we had a great leadership in DME, and because we had a plan in writing and forced everyone to sit down and, well, how's that going to work? What are we going to do? What's our training program for the ambassadors? How are we going to follow up with them? And what's working, what's not working? So being brutally honest about our success or our results, not necessarily our success, was I think were contributing factors for extraordinary numbers. Yeah, I had to be the treasurer, and the doggone general fund numbers have been exceeding 100 grand the last couple of years or last couple of months, and it's unprecedented in our experience. So it's a good deal. That's all I have to say. And I'm going to go to bed. It's late. Ciao. Not as late as you, Brother Bill. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Danilo. Others?
Yes, Steve, this is George Dariotis, and I was inspired by everybody who spoke. The pandemic has really forced us to rethink everything about our parishes, actually. And I think what Bill is saying is to be bold, and that is to keep thinking of these new and interesting ideas to keep people involved. And I think what he has told us at Annunciation is that we need to change our culture before we can do a lot of the things that he is providing as far as his viewpoints and his presentations. But I think this COVID has forced many of our parishioners and parishes to rethink the festivals and the reliance on such, and to refocus on the need of the giver to give, and the need of the parishioner to support their own parish. And we used to have a funny saying, not to rely on the Xeni money as much anymore. And so that's going to be a challenge, no doubt. And the time to change might have passed us, but we can still change. And I think that if we can refocus each other on these remarkable ideas from the folks that spoke, I think we're going to come out of this stronger, and to provide more outreach and evangelism. And I think if we can focus more on the spiritual part of it and less on the budgets and the money, and try to reconnect people with the faith after the post-pandemic, I think we're going to be way ahead. And I think Annunciation, we're all in. The parish council is together. Our clergy, we're all on the same page. And I think there's more to come, but we're going to be focused on a lot of, there's going to be a lot on our plate, but we're going to try to come through it and be stronger. So I want to thank the people that spoke, and I want to thank Bill for providing the inspiration that a person like me needs to feel good about post-pandemic and post-COVID.
Thanks, George. That's great. We kind of went into this as we started these town halls there to comfort each other and help each other and figure out how to get out of it. And now, as we've said, we're on this precipice. It's an opportunity. We've all suffered together. Hopefully, God willing, that we can now come out even stronger. I think we may have time for one more comment. And Father Corderas, you're always so kindly, you join us from the East Coast. Any thoughts or comments that you may have, given what you've heard here this evening?
I was just really impressed with the presentation. I think that what's going on in the parishes is really the ear to the ground, and to see people being creative and organized and willing to make changes, when that's the most difficult thing in parishes, is to make changes. But we got pushed out of our comfort zone, and something good can come out of something bad. And I think we've been pushed forward by this pandemic. So it's good to see what people are doing creatively. So I'm really, really pleased.
Excellent. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I'm going to put my email, many of you have it, but in the chat. If we didn't have a chance to get to comments, suggestions, I know, Neil, we had talked about, but maybe we could get to it in an upcoming session. Let me know, and we'll make sure we'll do our best to kind of carve out some time on these town halls, since we're doing them monthly and we've got the avenue to do that. And to keep sharing, and any other thoughts and ideas that we may have. Our next session is targeting outreach and evangelism. We can bring a little bit of the thinking and the ideas we've had here tonight, and certainly talk and extend that into greater outreach and evangelism, all in the spirit and in light of stewardship. Your Eminence, before I turn it over to you to close us out with your closing comments and closing prayers, I particularly, and I know you've heard it tonight, wanted to thank Stephanie and Connie and Demi and everyone that shared a little bit of their experience. It is truly inspirational, and I know we all need a little bit of shots of inspiration, and I hope many of you got this evening, and that we continue to go through this journey together, and hopefully the journey out of the valley and onto greater heights. So, Your Eminence.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brother William, and everyone who shared today. Very rich. Exchange of ideas. The dialogues that we began tonight and we will continue to have within between us, it's only the beginning. How you envision and I envision our faith going forward. It is the faith that we have so many times agree upon it, to continue to be the servants of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It is the faith that all these ideas and the inspirations that each and every one of us share with each other will bring about a change in our way of making our communities to become the beacons of the love and the mercy and the salvation of the souls of Orthodox Christians and everyone. Festivals or other issues that we have in our disposal to promote the faith is what we have given by God as challenges and weapons and tools to glorify His name. So I'm looking forward, and I want to again thank Steve Pappas and Bill Marianis and every one of you. I'm looking forward for the next one, so that we can be able to again not only exchange but also to put into practice some of these ideas that were shared this evening. Thank you so much. Those of you who are celebrating their feast day tomorrow and the day after, many happy returns. May the holy apostles Peter and Paul and all the apostles be granted to you all your wishes. Many thanks to Father James Cordaris who has been faithfully attending from the East Coast, and all my brother priests and all of you. May God bless you. Let us pray. O Christ our God, who at all times and every hour in heaven and on earth, you are worshipped and glorified, who are long-suffering, merciful, and compassionate, who loves the just and shows mercy upon the sinner, who calls all to salvation through the promise of blessings to come. Lord, this hour receive our supplications and direct our lives according to your commandments. Sanctify our souls, hallow our bodies, correct our thoughts, cleanse our minds, deliver us from all tribulation, evil, and distress. Encompass us with your holy angels, that guided and guarded by them, we may attain to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of your unapproachable glory, for you are blessed unto the ages of ages. Amen. A beautiful and blessed night to all of you, and a wonderful week.
Thank you, Your Eminence.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.